If you walked into a forest in North America or Europe 10,000 years ago, you were not at the top of the food chain. There were dire wolves, saber-toothed cats, and short-faced bears standing 12 feet tall on their hind legs. If you met one unarmed, you were dead. You had no claws, no fangs, no thick hide, and no speed. Physically, a single human being is one of the most defenseless medium-sized mammals on the planet. And yet, if you walk into that same forest today, a 300-pound black bear will smell you from a mile away, turn around and run for its life. A pack of wolves will vanish into the trees before you even know they are there. A lion in the Serengeti, an apex predator that can snap a zebra's neck with one swipe of its paw, will abandon its kill and flee in terror at the mere sound of a human whispering. Why? How did a slow, fragile primate manage to imprint a universal, instinctual terror into almost every wild animal on Earth? To understand where this terror comes from, you first have to understand a biological phenomenon known as island tameness. When animals evolve in an environment where no major predators exist, they lose their fear response over generations. Natural selection is brutal but efficient. Maintaining a hyper-vigilant threat system costs energy, creates stress, and takes time away from feeding and mating. If nothing is hunting you, fear is an unnecessary tax on survival. This is why the dodo on the island of Mauritius stood calmly as sailors walked up and knocked it on the head. It is why the giant tortoises of the Galapagos Islands had no reaction when humans climbed onto their backs. They had no internal blueprint for a predator, let alone a human. They didn't flee because in their millions of years of evolutionary history, nothing on two legs had ever hurt them. And within a few centuries, or in the case of the dodo, a few decades, they were completely wiped out. Now look at the rest of the world. Why aren't wild animals in North America, South America, Australia, or Europe as tame as the dodo was? The answer is terrifying in its simplicity. They used to be. When modern humans began expanding out of Africa around 60,000 years ago, they entered continents filled with massive, extraordinary creatures. North America had mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, and armadillos as big as cars. Australia had marsupial lions and 800-pound kangaroos. None of these animals had ever seen a human before. They had evolved alongside native predators but had never encountered a creature that hunted in coordinated packs, tracked prey over dozens of miles, or killed from a distance using sharp sticks and fire. To the megafauna of the Americas and Australia, humans didn't look like predators. We moved slowly, carried no obvious weapons on our bodies, and didn't smell like big cats or bears. So they didn't run. And because they didn't run, we ate them. Within a few thousand years of human arrival on each new continent, over 80% of all large mammal species went extinct. It was a blitzkrieg. The animals that survived that initial wave were not necessarily the strongest or the fastest. They were the ones that possessed or rapidly developed an intense inherited dread of the two-legged ape. The bold ones died. The curious ones died. Only the paranoid survived to pass on their genes. This explains one of the most striking anomalies in wildlife biology, why African animals react differently to humans than animals on other continents. In Africa, human ancestors spent millions of years co-evolving alongside lions, elephants, zebras, and rhinos. As hominids developed better tools and hunting techniques, African wildlife had millions of years to adapt step by step. They learned over thousands of generations that when the naked ape starts standing tall and gathering in groups, bad things happen. Fear was baked into their DNA slowly over deep time. But for the rest of the world, that lesson was taught in a violent evolutionary heartbeat. So what is it specifically that a wild animal sees or hears when a human approaches? What triggers that ancient alarm bell? One of the primary visual triggers is bipedalism. Walking upright on two legs is rare in the animal kingdom. To a quadruped, like a deer or an antelope, an upright posture makes a human appear unnaturally tall compared to our actual mass. When a bear stands on its hind legs, it is making a threat assertion. When a human walks normally, we project that same posture constantly. Then there are our eyes. Predators have forward-facing eyes to assess depth and track prey. When a human looks directly at an animal, locking forward-facing eyes with a steady, direct path of approach, we run the exact behavioral script of a predator closing in for a kill. But visual cues are only part of the story. In recent years, behavioral ecologists have discovered that the real driver of animal terror isn't how we look, it's how we sound. In 2019, researchers conducted a landmark study in South Africa's Greater Kruger National Park to measure how wild animals responded to acoustic threats near waterholes.
The speakers played 4 distinct sounds: calm human voices, lions roaring, dogs barking, and native bird calls. The results were overwhelming. When lions heard human voices, they were twice as likely to flee compared to hearing dogs or bird calls. But prey animals, elephants, rhinos, giraffes, leopards, and antelopes, were drastically more terrified of human speech than of lions. Hearing a normal human talking quietly made animals twice as likely to abandon the waterhole, fleeing in half the time compared to when they heard the roar of a lion. A lion is a physical machine built to tear these animals apart. Its roar signals immediate physical danger. Yet to the animals of the savannah, the sound of a human calmly discussing the weather is exponentially more terrifying than the roar of a lion. Similar studies in California played recordings of human speech and mountain lions to wild cougars. Upon hearing human speech, cougars immediately abandoned their kills and fled. From deep wilderness to shorelines, the human voice has become what ecologists call a superpredator cue. To wildlife, modern humans are a global superpredator. We kill adult prey at rates up to 14 times higher than non-human predators. We kill from distances far beyond an animal's natural reaction zone, using weapons that leave no physical warning cues. A wolf gives chase. A human sends a piece of metal flying faster than the speed of sound from 300 yards away, or sets a trap that waits silently in the dirt for weeks. Because our hunting methods do not follow standard biological rules, animals cannot develop a localized counter-strategy. They cannot outrun a bullet.
The only evolutionary adaptation that works against a human is absolute, uncompromising avoidance. This total avoidance has rewritten the planet's landscape, creating what scientists call a landscape of fear. A study covering 62 mammal species across 6 continents found that human activity is forcing animals everywhere to become nocturnal. Creatures that hunted during the day for millions of years, coyotes, boars, tigers, and deer, are shifting to total darkness simply because humans dominate daylight. They trade clear visibility for the safety of night purely to minimize human encounters. We have evicted the animal kingdom from the daytime world. Even when we enter nature with good intentions, as hikers, photographers, or conservationists, our presence carries that same overwhelming weight of terror. To a mother elk or nesting eagle, a camera lens looks no different from a rifle. Stress hormones flood their system, and energy needed for winter survival is wasted on panic. We like to think of ourselves as peaceful observers, but to the wild, our presence is a horror movie. Every snapped twig and low hum of human voice echoes like a death sentence. They do not know that we have laws protecting them. They do not know that we find them beautiful. All they know is that for thousands of years, whenever the hairless, upright ape appeared on the horizon, whole populations vanished into the dust. The fear animals feel toward humans is not a misunderstanding. It is the most rational evolutionary choice they could possibly make. It is the reason they are still here. In a world dominated by the global superpredator, being terrified of us isn't just a quirk of nature, it is the single most successful survival strategy ever written into animal DNA.